Hey you, welcome back to my video. In today's post, I'm going to be diving into an overview of my personal story. I hope you really like it. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you are returning, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you watching my videos. But without further ado, let's get right into it. My name is Heidi Chiarez. I'm a Mexican American transgender woman. I lived my life as a boy and learned that I was different, or I learned that I was gay because other kids in my school call me a fag. And this is in the late, 80s. And so back in the days, being gay was such a big deal. It is so weird that I had to live my life as a gay man first, and then I transitioned into a woman. But it's just going back to when I found out that I was different, or when I learned that I was a faggot, is when I went to kindergarten and people started to label me like throughout school, with faggot or derogatory terms like walk like a man or play with the guy's toys. You're not supposed to be playing with that toy. That's for girls or that's for women. And when you grow up in environments where you're not allowed to be yourself, it does have, a negative impact on the way that you're raised and the way that you view yourself. Because at such a young age, I was not fully aware of this particular subject, and so I was just trying to live my life as normal as I could. But the reality is that people always had an issue with me, and I'm talking about people from school, people around me. Like, it didn't matter where I went, I was so feminine that like people would automatically call me a fag. And it was very traumatizing to be raised in that way, because you grow up feeling insecure, you grow up feeling like you don't belong, and you grow up like alone and depressed and insecure. And it was just very difficult to grow up like that, especially when you're like a kid and all you want to do is like go out and hang out with the kids and play. I only played around with my cousins, but even like my little boy cousins, they didn't want to play with me. They would like get me involved in whatever they were playing, but it wasn't like something that they wanted to do because I couldn't do the same things that they were doing. So if they were playing with like marbles or anything like guy related, I wasn't able to play. Like sports, I wasn't able to play. So they didn't want to play with me because obviously they saw that I was different, and and that's just something that they didn't want to do. And I felt excluded, from like playing around. And so I resorted to like play with my little cousins, my girl cousins. At a very young age, I used to make clothes for Barbies. I used to hide myself in the bathroom, and my grandma used to think like, what the fuck are you doing in the bathroom? And I would be like, oh my god, I don't know, like I'm just playing. She would like get so mad at me because I was in the bathroom. I would lock myself in the bathroom, and I would play with my grandma's Barbie. My grandma had a Barbie, like the back in the days you would have these Barbies that you would sit like in the bathroom. Girl, I used to play with that shit. I used to like undress her, put her like in the water. I remember this so vividly. And I was raised by my grandparents, so it was a little bit challenging too to not be raised by your parents. And then I also dealt with a lot of like homophobia from like my uncles. Not all of them, but one in particular that was always like against me being different. And he always made sure to let me know that like I was an embarrassment to like our last name. I used to always wonder like why me or why none of my cousins. That was when I was like a teenager. But then at the age of 16, I met, my gay friends. I met my best friend that till this day we still keep in touch. But I met my best friend, and he introduced me to like the gay party scene. And at 16, instead of going out with like my high school friends, I was going out with my gay friends to like flyer parties and like they were called tea parties. And so we used to just go and have fun. And I was doing all of this as a boy. So in my 20s, like in my teenage years, in my 20s, I spent my life as a gay boy thinking that that's what I was, because of everyone else around me since the beginning was saying that I was a fag. So I grew up thinking that I was a fag. But once I started to live my life as a gay person, I realized really quickly that that's not what I wanted to get myself into. I learned very quickly that I didn't like gay men to be with. Like, I liked gay men as my girls, but not to be with. I used to like more of a straight acting, straight looking men, or heterosexual men, or bisexual men, but they didn't find me attractive because obviously I look like a man. Um, and I never had an issue, like, obviously picking up on guys, but that was not what I wanted to do. I lived my life like that because that's what I thought I was. And honestly, living my life in that way, not because I lived it in a gay life way, but me living my life as a gay boy and me not being a gay boy caused for me to be depressed. I spent almost a whole lifetime trying to find a boyfriend, and I never found a boyfriend. I could never have a boyfriend in the gay world because in my mind I was too feminine and I was too thin to be with a man. Like men, right? And so I had a very difficult time um understanding that. It wasn't until um I went through like a huge depression, and I felt like the world closed its doors on me, and I ended up like going to Mexico. I was getting harassed, and I immediately learned that I didn't want to be there, that I wanted to come back to Los Angeles. That's where I grew up. And on my way back to Los Angeles, while crossing the border, I was detained by ICE, and I was put in a ICE detention like facility. And I was there for about 2 months while I was fighting my case. Um, I slept through the rest of like the days that I was there. I slept through them. I caught an infection while I was crossing the border. I was in the border about 2 months, just waiting to cross. And then when I finally did, I learned that I had an infection. And after I was released from the ICE detention center in Arizona, they dropped me and another person off to catch the bus like outside of the Greyhound station with no money. I remember I had no money. I smelled really, really bad, and I remember this lady like gave me like money. She thought that I was like homeless, and like she gave me money, and with that money I was able to buy myself food. And ever since then, that like changed my life. That was such a it had such a positive impact on me that like it changed the way I see things. To make long story short, I ended up coming to Los Angeles, obviously legally, with a judge's order where I was going to be able to fight my case. And I was able to find an attorney. I was able to fight for my case, and I was able to win it. And so that's why I'm saying that, like, now going back to Mexico and then coming back was really what I needed to do in order for me to fix my legal status here. And so, fast forward to now, like, I look back at that, and now I'm able to understand, like, why is it that things needed to happen in that way. And that was such an, like, eye-opening moment for me because I learned so many things about myself. During that time, right when I was let out of the detention center, as soon as I got to Los Angeles, I started to get sick. I ended up in the hospital, and I was really bad. Like, my gums were just like bleeding, and I did not know like what was wrong with me. I told my mom. My mom was really, really scared, and immediately she rushed me to the hospital. We went to the hospital, and the doctor was like, "Did you travel outside the United States?" And I said yes. and they rushed me to the ER where they had me isolated. I mean, I literally felt like I was an alien because they took me to this room where it was just the bed, and I was covered in like plastics, and my bed was covered in plastics, and the doctors and the nurses would come into my room. They would come in with this like suits. It almost reminded me like if they were like astronauts, but they were hospital people. And I got really, really scared because I've never really experienced any of that. And once they did tests for everything, and they didn't find anything, and they said there's like a few infections, there's a few medication that could treat an infection. We're just gonna give you all three of them to see like which one kills them. And they did, and like within 2 days I was back to like getting to recuperate. Like I was able to feel a change in my system. And I was in the hospital for like about a week. And then after the week, when I was released, I got a call from the health department, and they said that I had caught an infection from like seafood that was already bad. And so that made me feel much better, because I honestly, like, ever since then, like, I have not gotten sick like that. And I'm so grateful for that. But that happened, and the doctor said, if you would have waited one more day, you could have died. Bitch. And when he said that to me, I was like, oh my gosh, something just clicked in my head. And obviously, when I was in the hospital, like, my mom knew that I was in the hospital, and that was fine for everybody. My mom wanted to stay with me in the hospital, and I told my mom, like, no, there's no need for you to stay in the hospital. You could go home. I could stay in the hospital. And then once it's time for me to go back, like, I'll just call you so you can pick me up. And that's exactly what we did. But during that time where I was in the hospital bed, I was just like thinking and thinking about my life. And I was like looking back at my life, and those words that the doctor told me about me possibly like dying, it really got to me. So I started to say to myself, like, you need to live your life for you. You cannot live your life for like anyone else. And so that's exactly what I started to do. Once my mom came to pick me up from the hospital, I told my mom, like, can I say something to you? Like, the doctor said that like if I lasted one more day, I could have died. I didn't want to die without having an opportunity to live my life as me. And I told my mom, like, I really want to transition. And I told my mom, like, now that I'm gonna be fighting for my case, and there's a pathway to like legalize myself while I look for work. I know that it's not gonna be it's gonna be easy for the fact that I'll have documents, but it's gonna be very difficult for me to get a job, because now I'm gonna decide to transition. And she was like, what? Transition? Into what? What do you mean? And so I told my mom, like, all this years I've lived a life that like you and my sisters and my family wanted me to live, but that's not the life that I want to live. And I told her, like, before I used to be discriminated against because I was undocumented, and I said, and now I'm gonna be discriminated against because I'm trans. And she was like, no, but what do you mean? Like, you're such a good looking boy. Like, we all love you like that. We love you the way that you are. And I just like looked at my mom, and I was just like, it like sunk in right there and then. And I like stopped the conversation and tell my mom, let's just take a break for now. Let's not talk about this. And so we let like a whole week go by. I let like a whole week go by, and then I told my mom again, like, I'm like, can we talk about like what I talked to you about in the hospital? And she was like, what was it about? So I had to remind her, and then I said, girl, do not play any games. You know that I told you that I wanted to transition. I don't know why. Maybe it's a human thing, but like, I always felt in my mind, like, having my mother's approval, that's all I really need. But as I get older, I realize that you don't need anyone's approval to be who you are. Obviously, you don't want to disappoint your family. You don't want to be the embarrassment. You don't want to be, the black sheep of the family or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I think we have to realize that we come to this life to live. And we also need to realize that we choose this life. We choose to be in this life as you. And so, as a soul, when you are up there, you are looking for lives that are going to benefit you as a soul to learn, to grow, and evolve. And so, I'm sure my soul was very happy up there when, before I was born, trying to come over here. But living this life here in this world is just fucking crazy. But it's not impossible. You have to be so strong, and you have to fall, and you have to get up, and you have to deal with whatever life throws at you. But I've learned that you have to live your life for you, not for your mom, not for your dad, not for your uncles, not for your grandparents, not for your sisters, brothers, any of that. You got to live your life for you. Like all of my sisters got up, got older, got married, did their life, left with their husbands, and they're having their life, right? But for me, it was different. Like, as a gay person, my sisters always sort of push, like, oh, well, you're gay and like you don't have a partner. So you could help my mom out. You could help our parents out. Like, you're working. And so it felt like very, like, because I was LGBT, I also had the responsibility to, like, be there for them. And I did that for a very long time. But I now realize that like it's not your job to do any of that. Like it is beautiful if you can provide or give back to your parents, but it's not your responsibility. And that's something that I had to battle because I grew up Mexican, Catholic, in the Mexican community, like as a family member, you're supposed to help each other. But I was giving more than what I was receiving. And I think I was doing that to overcompensate for the lack of love that I received. Um, but I'm here to tell you, Mama, like once you find yourself, once you come to terms with who you are and you're okay with that, baby, no one, no one can do anything to stop you. I'm telling you, it is very difficult and it's a very dark path to walk. But bitch, once you come out of that other side, it is beautiful. It changes, and I'm just now that I look back, I'm like living my life, and I'm like, whoa, this is the life that I used to dream of when I was a kid. So I don't know. I mean, after I told my mom that day, this was in 2012. After I told my mom, like, I want to transition, and she just again was like, no, but you're like so good looking, and like, you're perfect, and you're a boy. And that's what I said, like, that's exactly my point. All this time that I've lived here, like I have lived a life to try to please you and my family and my parent, my dad, my father, my sisters, my uncles, my grandparents. And the reality is that I am living a life that is a lie because I'm not comfortable being me and like guy clothes or having that pressure of being a man. Like that's not me. And I told her like, you essentially you already lived your life, right? You lived your life. You chose to marry my mom, my dad, and whether your plan came out to the way that you wanted to or not, like that was your life and those were your choices that you made. Now, this is my life and these are the choices that I want to make. I've already tried living my life as a guy, as a boy, and it did not work out for me. I used to tell her, like, you see me, I've been drinking a lot. I used to tell my mom, like, girl, I work hard, I play hard. But now that I look back in my life, I'm like, bitch, you were stupid. Because honestly, like drinking is okay. Over drinking is not okay. Like losing yourself in alcohol, there's a problem. You have something that you cannot deal with or you cannot accept. And so therefore you go and you get so drunk, try to forget, like life, and bitch, the next day you wake up with a hangover, disgusting like headaches, and all for what? Bitch, your problems are not gonna disappear, right? But I didn't look at it like that. I was like, no, girl, I work hard, I play hard. Simple as that. But the reality is that that was all bullshit, bitch. Because after I transitioned, yes, I still was drinking, but it wasn't the same. And I was still drinking. And then I think when I met my man, that's little by little I stopped drinking because my life just flourished. It changed. And obviously, this is something that I want to talk about. Maybe in a different video, I can talk about what my life was after transitioning or like pre transitioning. But I just want to give you an overview of my life, that like from when I was born till my 30th birthday, I lived my life as a gay man. And then from my 30th birthday till now, I've lived my life as a trans woman. And that's very powerful. I think in the beginning, I was very ashamed. I was ashamed of being gay. I was ashamed of being feminine. I was ashamed of being undocumented. I was ashamed of like even English being my second language, but not anymore. Not anymore. Once you come to terms with who you are and you own where you come from and you just become so proud of who you are, nothing and no one will drop you. I promise you that. But you have to be so strong, and you cannot let anybody else dictate how you need to live. So for any of you that's watching this video right now, I want you to be very strong, whatever it is that you're going through. And whether you're being kicked out of your house, whether you're being, you know, you're being made feel less than, or people are just like coming for you for no reason, bitch, they do that because, well, guess what, they see your star, they see that you are a motherfucking star, and they don't want you to see it. So don't be afraid to live your life. Don't be afraid to be you. Be unapologetically yourself and give zero fuck. That's what I would say to my old self. That like, don't be afraid. I'm not um discontent, or I'm not unhappy with my life. I just want to put a disclaimer out here. First of all, I am very grateful for the life that I lived. I have learned so much. I'm 42 years old and I've learned so much in this life that like everything that I have learned has made me feel like so powerful and has helped me be okay with who I am. Because also, this is for all the trans people. Like, you have to understand that once you decide to transition, there's multiple steps to it, right? Like, there's multiple phases to it. Like, you start once you decide that you want to transition, and you transition, you do it socially, then you do it medically, then you do it surgically. And then I think that a lot of trans people, we focus so much on like, let me live my life and dress as the person that I'm supposed to be. Let me go get my hormones. Let me go get my surgeries. And I have seen a lot of times that some trans people think that once they have their surgery, like their life is gonna be fixed, or things are gonna magically just work out for them. But the reality is that that's not the case. That's not the case. Like, besides doing and taking all the steps of like transitioning in that way, you have to genuinely and authentically, you need to be okay with yourself inside of you, that you are a bad bitch. That's exactly what you need to acknowledge. And you need to realize that like being different is what makes you a bad bitch, is what makes you that girl. And so I'll talk more about this in other videos. I really want to dive into that. But for right now, just wanted to kind of walk through like my story. I wanted to kind of tell you like a little bit about me, just to get to know you. This is my first video. I'm hoping that you enjoy this conversation. Thanks for watching. My name is Heidi Chiarez, and see you next time.